Getting visible six-pack abs is a fitness goal many people set for themselves. But here's the catch, only few people actually reach that goal, while most others unfortunately fail miserably, and here's why. First of all, getting a six-pack has very little to do with genetics and stuff like that, but instead it has everything to do with your approach. Let me explain. Six-pack abs have been an ideal of beauty for thousands of years in most cultures around the world, and for good reason. They are a sign of a fit and healthy body, and what a healthy body looks like obviously hasn't changed since the dawn of humanity. But keeping this in mind, you can already tell why lots of advice you hear on the topic is so utterly wrong, only leading to frustrating results. People are quick to believe in a secret workout hack or some other cheesy shortcut when it comes to fitness, because it sounds very convenient, and who doesn't like a convenient solution to their problem? Yet on the one hand, stuff like that obviously doesn't work, but on the other hand, it also completely misses the point. I mean, deep down, everyone knows the ugly truth. Precisely because six-pack abs are a display of physical health, they can only be the result of healthy everyday life decisions. And yeah, I can virtually see how you are rolling your eyes right now. Probably thinking, sure, I get it, I need to work out and eat healthy meals. Who would have thought, Captain Obvious? However, the secret to getting six-pack abs is not knowing what to do theoretically. The knowing part is less of a problem. The real problem is that making these healthy choices consistently is actually really difficult, and therefore the main reason so many people fail. Consequentially, I'm not just here to tell you what you need to do, but rather to show you how you can make these difficult choices easy. Because once these healthy choices have merely become another part of your personal daily routine, you will unironically start to love them, and getting that six-pack to chisel out is only a fancy side effect. Okay, so let's first talk about the age-old question of diet versus exercise. Do you just need to hit the gym every day for multiple hours and you're good to go? Or do you simply have to starve yourself to death to get your six-pack to show? Well, the answer is neither. Of course not. Both of these behaviors sound really unhealthy, so how could any of them lead to a healthy body? Quick side note, nothing against hitting the gym on a daily basis. If done right, it can be healthy of course, but it is certainly not a requirement to get your six-pack to show. Because the truth is, a six-pack is made in the kitchen. Let me explain what I mean. Yes, obviously physical exercise is part of the equation, but people vastly overestimate the amount of exercise required while undervaluing the importance of what you eat. If you want a rule of thumb, your six-pack is 80% your diet, 20% your workout. Probably even less, but that's my careful estimate. I will talk about the ideal way to work out later in the video, but the question we first have to answer is, what should an optimal six-pack diet look like, and what can you do to actually follow through with it and enjoy the process? So first and foremost, contrary to popular belief, getting a six-pack does not mean going to bed hungry. But I won't deny it, there are a couple of foods, and especially drinks, you should avoid. Yet if you know what they are, and most importantly, what you can replace them with in your everyday routines, you will already have taken a major step towards your goal. In any case, there are three, let's carefully call them food groups, that you should ruthlessly cut from your diet. These are industrial sugar, trans fats, and alcohol. Not only do these substances drastically increase your body fat in an unhealthy way, preventing your abs from showing, but they also increase your risk of cancer, and no one wants that. Let's first talk about sugar. In principle, sugar per se is not a problem. Your body actually turns any carbs you consume into sugar eventually, and that's perfectly fine and healthy. But I specifically mean industrial sugar, also known as saccharose or granular sugar. You know, that white powder you can use for baking. The problem with this kind of sugar is that it, unlike natural sugars, does not come with all the fibers and vitamins. Since the body needs these to digest sugar properly, this has dire consequences for your health. But what's the takeaway here? Should you never eat cake again or what? Don't worry, eating a piece of cake every now and then will not ruin your six-pack efforts, and there's nothing wrong with occasionally indulging in a good dessert. However, people are quick to tell you that a six-pack would require you to effectively say no to everything on your meal plan that looks remotely tasty. As a consequence, it is not a surprise at all why people eventually say screw it when following such awful advice. Again, consciously treating yourself with dessert on occasion is completely okay. The real issue though is that many things you can buy in a supermarket that look like they'd be healthy for you are actually desserts in disguise. Food manufacturers love mixing their products with industrial sugar. It is cheap and it is addicting, so it is very good for their profit margins, but of course terrible for your six-pack. Make sure to always double check what you are buying, especially canned foods. Consistently going for low-sugar alternatives in your everyday diet will make a huge difference in the long run, while not at all affecting how much you can enjoy your meals. The second substance we have to address are the trans fats. A common misconception many people buy into is the mantra that consuming fats would make you fat. Sounds logical, it's the same word, right? In reality, however, fats are an important nutrient and therefore perfectly healthy. A subgroup of fats, on the other hand, the so-called trans fats, are extremely unhealthy. These will actually make you fat, which is not what you want if your goal is a six-pack. A trans fat is a fatty acid that has artificially been made tender. Think of margarine, for example. The ingredients used to produce margarine are not even remotely spreadable, but margarine itself is a spread. The structure of the fats have been altered to make them spreadable, and now they are trans fats. Your body, however, is not adjusted to handle this novel molecular structure, so you will gain a lot of weight very quickly by consuming these trans fats. But if you instead stick to natural variants, such as butter for your bread or olive oil for cooking, for example, you will make good progress towards your six-pack goal. In fact, the single most important tip in this entire video is arguably to cook your own meals as often as possible. This way, you have full control over what you eat, so you don't unknowingly sabotage yourself. Meals cooked with olive oil are still just as rich and mouth-watering as any fast food item, but unlike fast food, they won't cause inflammation in your body. Okay, so these are the most important things to keep in mind when it comes to foods, but we also have to talk about drinks. Because these are arguably the main culprits when it comes to people not reaching their six-pack goals, and no, it's not just alcohol. Of course, alcohol should be avoided if you want to see fast results. Alcohol is surprisingly dense in terms of calories, and these calories are completely empty. This means that they don't fill your stomach and don't come with any nutritional value. They are just an extra burden for your body. But as all of you know, alcohol is also literal poison. So if you can help it, you should never ever drink it, but I mean, we also need to be realistic here. Some social events put a lot of peer pressure on you, which is something we shouldn't ignore. However, having a drink or two on such an occasion is not a big deal. In most circles, it is socially acceptable to not get completely drunk, so just don't overdo it. But stay away from spirits whenever possible, and most importantly, avoid sugary cocktails like the plague. Because, and many people don't know this, sodas and other drinks that contain sugar are extraordinarily vicious for your body and consequentially for your gains in the gym. The problem is that these beverages funnel sugar into your body much faster than any food item ever could. You can easily consume 200 grams of sugar drinking soda or fruit juice in less than 30 minutes. But trying to do the same thing eating chocolate is literally impossible. From all the food items that could hurt your six-pack progress, sugary drinks are by far the most detrimental. Yes, they are worse than alcohol in that regard. Sticking to water in your everyday life is the easiest solution. You can treat your taste buds with solid foods instead. But keep in mind that any kind of tea and even black filter coffee are in fact extremely healthy. Just don't mess up your sleep schedule with unholy amounts of caffeine. Okay, so by making these dietary choices on a day-to-day basis, you're already 80% there when it comes to your six-pack goals while still being able to fully enjoy good meals. But what are the best workouts if you want your six-pack to show as fast as possible? By the way, keep in mind that if you want to have educational content on personal health and happiness in your custom feed, all you need to do is click the subscribe button. Okay, so technically speaking, it is optimal to combine cardio on the one hand and resistance training on the other hand. The most straightforward approach would be to hit the gym 2 or 3 times a week, starting with a good treadmill session and going for squats, deadlifts and pull-ups afterwards. However, the problem with this approach is, at least for me personally, that it is extremely boring. For half a year I tried to muster the discipline to integrate the gym into my weekly routine, but it was an absolute chore. If you are one of the lucky ones who actually enjoy going to a classic gym, then you will have it easy, but even if that's not the case, there is a solution. Because fortunately enough, your abs are core muscles of your body, which means you use them doing literally anything. As a result, the only bad workout would be doing nothing at all, so you can simply pick a sport that looks like fun to you. Pick whatever you can stick with and whatever does not feel like a chore. Football, gymnastics, swimming, doesn't matter. I personally had to look long and hard for the perfect sport for myself. I quit volleyball, I quit soccer, I quit badminton, but I finally found something enjoyable when I started practicing martial arts. The idea that these sports can potentially save your life is just super motivating. I've actually made a video on the 5 most effective martial arts in self-defense situations, so if you need some inspiration, just click the link on your screen right there.